as we both know.
Yeah.
But the fact that you can be cute and be environmentally friendly
Yeah.
is it's enough for me.
Yeah.
Hello, this is Yolanda Murphy, and welcome to this Exceptional Journey podcast, where you will find inspiration to live courageously through adversity, empowerment to live freely despite your past, and ignition to live boldly in your purpose, all by walking the survivor side of life. Good people, what is up? It is your girl Yolanda Murphy back in the building with another episode of this Exceptional Journey podcast. How have you been? If this is your first time, welcome, welcome, welcome. And then if this is not your first time, girl, where you been? How are the children? Everyone's good? Good to hear. As you can tell from the title, I have someone that is just simply amazing with me today. But before I get to the guest, let me go ahead and plug my social media as always. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at This Exceptional Journey. And then on Twitter, go ahead and hit me up at TEJ Podcast. Even hashtag me, TEJ Podcast. Questions, comments, suggestions. Your girl wants to hear from you. But let's jump right in. Guys, so you already know I'm part of an amazing young adult cancer support group out of the Cancer Caring Center here in Pittsburgh, PA. And I have one of my fellow members here with me, Alex. Hey, girl.
Hi.
So, if you haven't already been able to tell, I am all about plugging and giving people's story a voice. I mean, hello, this exceptional journey is just about that. So I told everyone in the group, I was like, everyone's getting a podcast episode. They all thought I was playing, and I was like, no, guys, no, for real, let's plan this. What does your schedule look like? So I said, Alex, girl, you have to be on. And she was like, yeah, I think I'd be able to do that.
Yep.
And I was like, cool. I mean, literally, no one can tell your story like you. So I was like, let's do it. So, Alex, thank you so much for being here.
I'm glad to be here.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. So I told Alex, I said, we're just going to chill. We're going to relax. I'm sipping some coffee. She got some LaCroix. We're chilling. And I just want you to tell your story. So what's your story? Tell us everything, the details.
So my story is, I guess, pretty new because everything kind of happened over the last year or so. Yeah, I guess starting kind of like last November, I started getting this, what I thought was a cold and a cough, and it got progressively worse through December, and I ended up going to see my PCP, and he was treating it for bronchitis, and it wasn't going away with treatment. I went back again. We did steroids. It wasn't going away. And so the New Year rolls around, and I know the dates pretty well because it's
oh, absolutely,
fairly
I mean, it's
easy.
a part of your life. It's ingrained
Yeah,
in your memory,
so January 2nd, he's or I think probably even January 1st, he said to get an x-ray because since it wasn't responding to treatment, the cough, he thought maybe it's pneumonia, so I should get a chest x-ray. So January 2nd, I got the chest x-ray, and then January 3rd, he called me and said, well, your lungs are clear, but it looks like there's a mass in your chest. And so by this time, I am incredibly sleep deprived because the coughing, unlike a normal cough, didn't stop at night. And super tired. And also my voice started getting really weird. And almost even as I was talking to him, it was I was getting a speech delay and stuff, and so he grew very concerned. On the phone, he was like, I think you should go to the emergency room and get a CT scan and things like that. So that was probably around 1 p.m. and I called my mom, and we went together and we got the CT scan, and let's see, my brother and my dad also came into the emergency room, and we were waiting there for like a solid 5 hours or something.
I hate the emergency room.
Yeah, and we were just like together and
nice.
kind of joking around because this was really my first time in an emergency room, and so bless you.
Thank you. Oh, I was trying so hard not to let it out. Thank you.
But yeah, so we were sitting in the emergency room and we were kind of like counting up all the times my brother had been in comparison to me.
Yeah, that's kind of me and my brother are kind of the same way. Like when I was growing up, I was like the healthy kid.
Yeah.
Like barely had the flu, barely had anything. My brother, however, he had pneumonia twice, broke his thumb, sprained his wrist. We were like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah.
I mean, boys are boys, don't get me wrong, but still, like, come on.
Yeah, he had been in the emergency room 26 times. Yeah.
Did you say 26?
Yeah. Yeah.
Holy cow.
And like, I mean, he was like, I think the only reported case of like the swine flu in West Virginia and things like that.
That's history.
So like,
is your brother okay now though?
Oh yeah, he's totally fine.
Okay, because first of all, that's a lot of times.
Yeah.
And second of all, the swine flu.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that at another time.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So like, we were kind of like joking and stuff,
trying to keep it light and
eventually I think it was like a resident that came in and he was like visibly nervous to be telling me this stuff, but he was like, yeah, we suspect that it's lymphoma and kind of like, we're gonna get you into the progressive unit and we have to get a biopsy, blah blah blah. It felt very surreal to hear that. Background, I was 29 at the time, so, you know, you don't really expect...
You don't at
from,
all.
like, a cough to,
right, like, oh, I just had bronchitis, to, you have cancer.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah, so it was really surreal. I mean, we cried a little bit, like, right then, but, I don't know, after that, it took me so long, even into treatment, to kind of accept that I had cancer.
Yeah.
I think because I had been so sick for a long time, thinking it was like a cold or bronchitis or whatever, that it just didn't feel like
like cancer.
Yeah, or like what you hear in the media or whatever.
Right,
like,
and that was literally like when I was going through what I was going through, I was like, but I feel fine.
Yeah.
Like it's not what you typically see in society when they paint cancer as a picture.
Yeah.
I did not fit that mold.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whether I was young or because I was African American or because I was a woman, whatever.
Yeah.
Like I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Like you're telling me, huh? So I completely understand. You felt like you didn't fit it, you know what I mean, from society. Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, I ended up being in the progressive unit for like 5 days because they took forever to do. They got the biopsy, but then the pathology report took forever because it was like over a weekend and nobody was
That's
in.
the worst. Oh my gosh.
And it's like, come on, seriously, guys.
Right.
Like, so they kept me kind of hanging.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then I got the official diagnosis, I think, on January 8th, and then I started chemo right away. They were like, this needs to be treated. So I have non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. It's called diffuse large B-cell lymphoma. And usually it comes with a mediastinal mass, which is like a mass in your chest, which is what I had. It's a very aggressive growing type of cancer. So basically from like November to January was like when it was growing.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
In that short period of time. Oh my God.
So, and even though it was stage 2 when they caught it, I imagine like if we had waited even 3 more weeks, it would have been...
That would have been horrific.
Pretty bad, yeah. So by the time they caught it, it was almost the size of my heart, sort of like at my heart. So yeah. So we started treatment. Chemotherapy, first round, was pretty awful. I honestly don't really remember that much from it. The first 2 rounds a lot of it is kind of a blur because I slept so much.
Yeah.
But I know that the first round was really bad. I had a lot of pain. I had some pain like radiating up into my jaw. I had lost my voice almost completely because the tumor had damaged one of the nerves going up to my vocal cords. And so like I couldn't even I don't know. It was pretty devastating
Yeah.
to not be able to talk really anymore.
Listen, I love to talk.
Same.
So, I can only imagine, like, even sometimes, like, when I sing and stuff and I lose my voice for, like, even a couple days, I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and then you try to force yourself, you're like,
Yeah.
no, nothing's coming out. I can imagine.
Yeah, and it was scary and sort of like really, I guess, almost damaging to me, just because I couldn't express
Yeah.
sort of like, I mean, like, people could still kind of hear me, but my grandparents really had a hard time because they're hard of hearing, and I think my parents sometimes had a hard time. I mean, anytime there was any kind of background noise, I was lost.
Yeah.
And so, you know, there's this frustration with it, which you know, it was really yeah. It was very hard to deal with.
Yeah. I can only think of, like, during my process and everything, there are certain things, my taste buds completely went.
Oh, yeah.
And so right off the bat, like right from the beginning, we're reminded that we have cancer. You know what I mean? And the side effects are almost immediate.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where, as a young adult, I mean, correct me, you tell me what you think, but as a young adult, I mean, you still think you have this whole life ahead. And we do, of course, we're still here, we're healthy, we're strong. But I mean, in the moment, you're like, dang, like, I have cancer. It came out of nowhere. And here is a reminder, something, a immediate side effect that takes place that continually reminds me how much control I don't have. So I can imagine, like, beyond frustrating, I mean, at least for me, it was like a little piece of me left.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Absolutely.
it just reminded me, and I mean, unfortunately, I do like being in control.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
You know.
Same.
But it just reminded me how much I didn't have, and it was beyond, like you said, like, just frustrating, like, come on, like, serious. But yeah, so
that was a big thing. The pain in the beginning was really awful, and I kept thinking, like, I remember there were some nights where after the first round, I'd been released back to my parents, who were, I mean, so incredible. I just cannot imagine what my whole treatment would have been like if I didn't have the amazing support of my family. Both my brother and my parents were there with me, like, every step of the way. So I remember there were some nights where I was just in bed because I didn't have the energy to be anywhere else, and like crying and thinking, like, if the pain is gonna be like this for the next 6 months, I don't know if I can, like, live with that. I don't know if I can live through that. And keep my sanity because it was just so awful. And I did end up being hospitalized again before the next round of chemo. And then after the second round as well, I had another unplanned hospital visit. I was also, like, severely dehydrated both times because of the pain. I also ended up getting, like, the mouth ulcers and things like that from the chemo that I just didn't want to eat or drink.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
And yeah, it was just really, really awful in the beginning, for sure. I did have, like, a lot of my coworkers, like, either sent me messages or, like, made cards, or some came to visit me. We always had to be, like, kind of careful about that, like, you know, make sure that everybody's healthy before they come to visit.
Of course.
And things like that. But they were also, like, really wonderful and just great friends. So I was really lucky to kind of, like, have that kind of a support network. And then, of course, I also found the group at some point, and that was also really helpful.
Amazing. Your very first group, I remember you coming to the club. You didn't have a voice.
Yep.
And I was so intrigued by it because I was like, who's this new person that I want to know her story, but I can't hear her?
Yeah.
It was so cool. And you mentioned your brother was there with you.
Yes. Yeah.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
Like,
he was really amazing. I mean, before that, like, we were really close when we were young.
Oh, that's good.
We lived in Germany.
Yeah, let's bring that up real quick.
Okay.
First of all, this girl is like hella smart. She grew up in Germany for how many years?
I was up until I was 11.
11. So that's like all of your primary years.
Mm-hmm.
Like this girl, we were at group yesterday, right?
Yeah.
So one of the group members brings in a box that has, to me, is foreign language. Either way it goes. It could have been French. It didn't matter. But I mentioned German. This baby starts speaking German. Like, I was like, what in the world? I was like, oh, yeah, I forgot. You grew up in Germany. I forgot. Like, the coolest thing ever. How was that?
It was good. I loved it.
Yeah.
I still, like, strongly identify as German, too.
That makes sense.
I mean, I have dual citizenship and everything.
Oh,
so,
cool.
Yeah.
I want dual citizenship. Where can I dual it from? I don't know. Like, don't
but-
you have to be born there?
I don't know what the requirements are for Germany.
I'm just
That's
that.
just me, yeah.
So freaking funny. That is so cool. But
Yeah.
so you two were close when you were growing up.
Yeah, but when we moved to the States, I think partially because we were in separate schools,
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah.
then
Mhm.
just like puberty and things, we didn't get along for a while.
Mhm.
And then in college, we started getting along better, but didn't really talk that much. And then I lived in Vienna for 3 years,
Vienna.
Austria. So, like, in Europe. Yeah.
You're just amazing.
I went
Do you
back.
hear this? Just freaking amazing.
But so like during that time we didn't really talk that much, but when I came back we started communicating more regularly. But really when I got sick and I was in the hospital and at home, he had for I think mostly other reasons, but he had recently quit his job.
Okay.
And so he spent a lot of time with me in the hospital room. Mostly we were just like sleeping.
That's fine.
Or like whatever. And
Yeah.
then he'd come like so my treatment was that I'd be 5 days in the hospital, hooked up for about 22 hours at a time with like a short break for a shower.
Oh gosh.
And then like back onto the line, I guess, which I like to call poison Gatorade because it was
mean,
orange
really?
and poison.
Holy,
So,
I mean, it is
the
poison.
chemo, yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
I don't think mine had a color. That's so interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so I like to call it the poison Gatorade.
Okay.
So yeah, so I'd have a week in the hospital. I'd be released Friday. Spend the weekend at home, mostly in bed. At that point, I would like never have any energy. And then Mondays I have to go back in for rituximab, which is I think it's a type of immunotherapy treatment or something. I just know that I read up on it, and statistically, people who get that treatment are way less likely to get a return of the cancer. So that's good.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yes, give it to me.
Yeah.
Hello.
So,
Okay, cool.
But then I'd have 2 weeks at home to recover.
Okay, well, that's
which,
good.
in my opinion, was never enough, but
It never is.
really.
I was grateful when I did mine. I did mine every 3 weeks. I did Taxotere and Cytoxin. At the same time, they give you the cocktail in the beginning, and then they give you the chemo and all of that, and then the saline, what have you. And then I was grateful, like, it wasn't probably until like the 3rd week I started feeling regular again, but then it was time to go back for another chemo treatment.
Yeah.
So it was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like,
And initially they had planned to do 3 weeks in between, but they, I guess, said that I was responding well to it.
oh, good.
And actually after I think during the 3rd round, they had changed the cocktail a little bit for me, and I was responding way better. Like I wasn't having as many side effects.
Oh, good.
So I don't know if they reduced the dosage slightly or what the deal was, but after that, I was able to handle it a little bit better.
Good. That's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Cool.
After that tangent, yeah, I came to group, I think probably the first time in April.
Yes.
And like my last treatment was the last week of April, so like after that point,
Cool.
I kind of
Group.
yeah. But yeah,
Oh my
it's been really pretty amazing. It's so weird, like cancer is kind of like a club you don't know exists until you're a part of it.
Until you were a part of it, absolutely.
And then like people just kind of crawl out of the woodwork and you like find out, like I found out that not too long after I was diagnosed, a friend of my brother's was diagnosed with the same thing.
Really?
So we had been like chatting on Facebook Messenger.
Yeah.
Because I was just a little bit further ahead in the treatment. And then, like, I found out that a former classmate of mine also had cancer.
Wow.
And is, like, also going through treatment right now. And I'm just
Wow.
like, what is happening?
Right. Right. Like, it's such a small world. You think you don't know anything about it, but then it's like boom, 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 boom. It's insane.
Yeah.
I can definitely attest to that. So cool. So group is going good for you.
Yes, definitely.
Awesome. I think Stephanie is completely a godsend.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
absolutely. I'm so glad that she...
better? I know. Who better to be able to run the group than someone who's been where we, where we've been.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So I completely, like, hey, Steph, if you're listening.
Yeah.
We love you.
Yeah.
But cool. So we already talked about the family history.
Yeah.
Your grandfather, what have you. That was good that they caught it really, really early. Would you say that, like, during treatments and everything, what would you say was, like, your biggest, not hindrance, but maybe biggest struggle? Like, even maybe mentally or if not physically?
I think, I don't know. I mean, a big struggle was just this crazy fatigue. It's so indescribable for somebody who hasn't experienced it before, because I've just, like, never felt that kind of weakness before. Like, I don't know. Before I was sick, even if I was lazy and wasn't going to the gym a lot, I still had this kind of, like, core strength that I could always rely on to do whatever I needed to do. So, like, if I wanted to jump in with, like, a Groupon to do a month of CrossFit classes, I could still do that, even though it would be hard work.
Of course.
But I could do it.
Yeah.
But, like, going through treatment, I was lucky if I could make it up the stairs sometimes.
Literally. Oh my gosh.
That is, like, such a crazy feeling to have such a strong limit to what you can do. And after my treatment, my grandmother and my aunt came from Germany.
Oh, cool.
After I finished my treatment to visit. And this was, like, a pretty huge deal because both of them are very anxious travelers, especially my grandmother, and also my aunt hadn't been to the States since my parents got married, which was, like, 30 plus years ago.
Wow, okay.
So this was a big deal.
Yeah.
And, like, I remember when they called to tell me that they were thinking about coming, I just, like, burst into tears. I was so grateful and, like, happy and excited to have them come. And so, at that point, my brother had already moved to Williamsburg, Virginia. He's at Colonial Williamsburg.
Yeah.
And so we went for a visit with my grandma and my aunt, too. And I slept at my brother's place, and they were in the hotels. And, like, the first day, I probably should have chosen better shoes, but literally I'd walked probably less than a mile, and I had got these massive blisters on the balls of my feet. Not even, like...
Really?
Yeah. And I had never had blisters there before. And I was like, oh, yeah, my skin is just... It's not as strong or as thick anymore.
No.
And
everything changes. Literally.
Yeah.
Like, literally.
Yeah. And, yeah, it was so weird.
Yeah.
And I was just still really weak, and, like, for most of that trip, I didn't really do that much. But it was fine. I mean, everybody else was having a good time and stuff.
Themselves. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you say, how is it for you now? Like, the fatigue and all of that?
It's a lot better. I find sometimes it'll hit me out of nowhere. If I had done something, maybe I did some yard work the day before, and then suddenly I'm, like, super exhausted the next day, and I sleep like half the day. And then other times, like yesterday, my dad and I went to the gym, and we started, like, on the elliptical, and we were on there for 30 minutes, and I actually was on it for the full 30 minutes, and I ran, or ellipticized, I don't even know.
See, I told you she's smart. Who brings up ellipticized?
Yeah.
What?
I don't know if that's a word.
You just made it up so it makes sense. That's all.
But yeah, I moved for 30 minutes, and it was like an equivalent to 3 miles, and I'm just like, holy crap, I didn't even know I could do that at this point. Like,
oh my gosh. So let's pause for the cause. So first of all, tell us about what you and your dad are doing.
So a little while ago, about, I guess, a week and a half ago, my dad asked, because I have just been, like, upset about how my body is doing. I've had some I have some issues now that are just going to be a long-term thing. like just my hormones don't work anymore, and so I have to take hormone replacement pills and things like that. And so I feel a lot of frustration, and I just don't trust my body anymore. Which is a really crappy feeling.
It's horrible.
That you can't rely on that.
You can't trust it. You don't know what your limits are because you don't know what you can handle or what you can do. Yeah, absolutely.
And so my dad was like telling me that he'd been thinking about this for a while, but he was wondering if I wanted to train for the Pittsburgh Marathon with him, and if that would help regain the trust that I lost. Now, I don't know if I'm going to regain that trust, but I think maybe it will be helpful. Just in other ways too, just to get some kind of control back. And so, yeah, yesterday was the first day of training.
Awesome. So I just wanted to point that out because she's a badass. Because who just, yeah, Dad, come on, yeah, let's do it. Like what? We were talking about it before we started recording, and I was like, you got it. Because, listen, I mean, my dad can ask me all he wants to train for a marathon. Dad, I'll hold the cards for you on the side. Because it's going to take a little bit more time for me I need a whole, year to train, okay? But I think that's so cool. Again, something you and your father are doing. And, I can completely concur with the whole, not being able to trust. I remember the very first time I went back in the gym after, because the cancer fatigue is so real, like you said. Sometimes it'll hit you out of nowhere. But you have to listen to your body. You know what I mean? You have to understand, okay, this is the limit. I've reached it. Let me regain, you know what I mean, my strength as far as I can. Very first time I went back to the gym, and I have bad knees just from playing sports from being younger or what have you. Yeah. And so I can't do the treadmill anymore. It's just too much. So I do the elliptical. Same exact thing. I was like, I'm going to do it for 30 minutes. Yeah. And I didn't look at the time, didn't, do any of that. And I got to maybe 25, and I was like, how long have I been doing this? So I looked, and I was like, oh my goodness, I made it. Girl, awesome. You couldn't have told me nothing that day. I was walking around like, yes, I did that. But I so get it. I so get it. And I think that is so awesome that you and your dad are going to do this together, and that he recognizes that this is not an easy task. But like you said, even if it doesn't get you to completely regain that trust or control or what have you, it'll be a start. You know what I mean? You have a goal. You and your dad are doing it. That's awesome. Yeah. Keep ellipticizing. Yeah. That is so funny.
Yeah. I mean, and I think part of the reason why I was kind of gung-ho about it, I mean, I took a week to think about it, and he also gave me some reading materials, and I looked it up on YouTube and tips and stuff. But I mean, my dad started running marathons at 49, and he's run 8.
Shut up.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's run 8. And so he has experience.
Oh, he has a lot of experience.
Yeah. He hasn't run since 2014, but he's like, it feels kind of like my first time too. Aww. And I'm like, okay, cool. We can do that together. Yeah.
Shout out to Dad.
At least he knows kind of what's coming up, what to expect, kind of like a training plan. He's always been very physically active. That's his way to release the stress and things like that. And so throughout my even as a teenager, we would do different things together. So
cool.
This is kind of going back to that.
Awesome. That is so cool. Listen, I'll cheer you guys on from the side. Cause
thanks.
You got that.
I need that too.
Listen, I'll be right there. Because I think Matt is doing it too, right?
Yeah.
Matt said he's doing it.
Yep. I just found out yesterday.
Listen. Yep.
So
I'm gonna clap it up for y'all.
Yeah, for sure.
Keep going. But that's so cool. Yeah. That's so cool. And I think part of life after diagnosis is so much about, okay, we always hear about the new normal, of course. But finding your, not necessarily limits for your own body and mind and emotions as well, but finding in you the determination that even despite days, okay, you know what, I do need to sit still, but the day after being like, okay, let's keep going. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of times with this walk and this fight that we have and this determination is so much in our mind. You know what I mean? Yeah, we can't control what our body does at this point. because it's reacting to what it's been through.
Yeah.
But mentally, I have the determination to make it. You know what I mean? And just like we were talking about, I think even just in the training of the marathon, I think you'll gain so much. You know what I mean? It will be an arduous task, but it'll be so worth it in the end when you cross that line.
That's what I'm hoping for too.
Absolutely. I think it will, girl.
Yeah.
I think it will.
And it's been kind of like an interesting balance for me mentally and emotionally because I know that I have been struggling with depression, and so I have this logical side of me and then this depressed side of me, where one is like really negative and awful and saying, you know, like, oh, why are you even trying? The cancer's going to come back and you're not going to do well the second round.
Everyday battle.
And then like on the other one hand, it's like, okay, well, let's look at the statistics here. You know, probably it's not going to come back. Probably you'll be fine. And, you know, all of these things. So it's like trying to fight back against the negativity that I still like have in my head.
Is it just me or every ache, everything? Oh, it's cancer.
Yeah.
Oh like,
man. Yeah, absolutely.
Every freaking day. Like, when I get up out the bed, I first take inventory before I start anything. So I'll sit up and, you know, move my joints and move. I'm like, okay, no pain here. All right.
Yeah.
Everything feels okay here. And then, you know, I move up about my day. And, I mean, I don't know about you, but every day I feel like I find something new after this. Like, you know what I mean? Like something, oh, I can't do that. Oh, okay. Oh, this is how this is going to go?
Yeah, I mean, like, routine stuff now holds a lot more weight to it. I mean, and I don't know if this will be TMI, but, like, I had my annual gynecology exam, and, like, sometimes you get an irregular pap smear.
Right.
Usually it's not a big deal.
Right.
I even had one last year, and it was fine. And so this year I had an irregular one again, and if I hadn't had an irregular pap smear last year, they probably wouldn't have done this procedure, but it's just like protocol to do it. So you have to get another biopsy for the procedure. And so like I did this last year. It was fine last year.
Right.
And this year, as soon as I heard it, of course my head was like,
of course,
it's cancer.
Of course.
I'm going to have to get a hysterectomy. I'm going to have to like,
and and then doesn't your mind go like run and run? It doesn't just stop oh, it's cancer again. No. It's like, and I'm going to have to do this and I'm going to have to do chemo and then I'm going to.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So, and I was so stressed out. And like, even going to different doctors' offices, like I had to get colonoscopy and endoscopy because I was having issues with like digestive issues because of the chemo. And like, again, there's so much anxiety now where I didn't really have that much anxiety before. And it's like, I avoid a lot of things now that I didn't avoid before, like TV shows that I know have like hospital scenes in them or movies, because
isn't that crazy? Like every day, like it literally changes everything from what you watch on television, sometimes even what music you listen to, the people that you surround yourself with, like you said, daily routines. And now, I mean, I don't know about you, but even going to the dentist is an arduous task, because it's like, okay, now that I've had chemo and gone through all of this, now you're telling me that my teeth can decay much faster because it changes something in your saliva or something. So I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, speaking of, I need to make another appointment.
Girl,
just before the year ends for like my insurance thing.
Absolutely, girl, take advantage.
Yeah.
But I had two root canals done in the past 2 months.
Oh man.
And I'm just over it. Like before chemo, before anything, I would keep up with my dentist appointments. My teeth were fine.
Yeah.
I would have a cavity every once in a while or you know, something like that, but my teeth are great. Like never had any issues. After chemo, I needed 2 root canals. Yeah. Like, and I had just went like the year before. Yeah. She was like, you need 2 root canals now. I was like, what? Like, just that quick. Like, regular stuff. Eyesight. Went to they were like, Miss Murphy, we need another test. Okay. Taking pictures of the eyes, and I'm like, oh my gosh. It's never ending. As soon as
they hear something like, oh, let's do another test, you're just like, okay, it's bad news.
Anxiety times 10. I'm glad to know it's not just me.
Yeah.
Girl,
No, it's definitely a pretty far-reaching thing.
Whew. I mean, if nothing else, you know, even in what I can say that I've learned going through everyday routine stuff, like you said, stuff is different. Like you said, when you hear certain things like, oh, we need, oh my gosh. But if anything, I think it was Maria who mentioned in her episode, dead people can't need another test.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Like,
True.
I might have waken up with pain, but dead people can't feel anything.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's get it done and let's do what we need to ensure that I'm good, but let me also relish in the fact that I'm still here to do it.
Yeah.
And that's always my biggest takeaway. It's not always easy, of course.
Mm-hmm.
There are, you know, the moments where you're like, okay, you know what? I can't do today. Like, I just cannot do this right now. I'm just going to stay under the covers all day and I'm okay. And I'm allowed to.
Yeah.
But then there's those times where you're like, okay, now let's pull up these bootstraps and let's get some stuff done. Yeah. So, I mean, you kind of have to take the good with the bad with this journey.
Yep.
And
sure.
you learn so much about yourself, would you say, along the way?
Yeah, some things. I mean, I've learned that I can survive chemo. I guess not everybody does, and you don't hear those stories as often. And so it's easy to forget that, like, even though the medicines and the survival rate are a lot better now, and that doesn't mean that everybody lives. So I've had to sort of remind myself of that. With the loss of my voice, I've kind of learned that I'm not a patient person and that I get frustrated easily with a lot of things. And so, like, working through that to some extent is, I mean, it's still a process.
Of course.
And obviously my voice is back now, which I am so grateful for. I can't even stress that enough. I mean, still sometimes I notice that I don't have the same control that I did before.
Oh, okay.
I notice that sometimes it'll waver, or if I'm feeling very emotional or excited, it'll get a little funky.
Really? Okay. Does it hurt at all?
No, it doesn't hurt. It just feels a little bit, like, out of control.
Okay.
And that sounds so weird to say about your own voice.
Yeah.
But it just feels like it's going to give out or something. And, like, even in the beginning when we were just talking, like, at the beginning of the podcast, I could feel it. I could feel it happening.
Okay.
So it's weird.
Yeah.
That, yeah. So there's also, like, just, you kind of lose your identity when you lose your voice.
For
and
sure.
You also lose it when you know, like, you go through the hair loss and you lose your eyebrows and
or your fingernails
eyelashes,
or toenails. And,
or your nose hairs, which is so weird.
Really?
But yeah.
Maybe I didn't notice.
Okay, so I wouldn't have known that that's what was going on until I read somebody else post about it, like in one of the groups, because, like, literally it would just drip out of my nose and I wouldn't notice until it dripped, and it's because the nose hairs weren't there to catch.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I never would have thought of that.
So, like,
What?
I didn't even notice either.
That's crazy. That makes sense, though.
But you're, like, literally losing every hair on your body.
Yes.
And I didn't know I even had that much hair until it started growing back. And I'm like, why does my skin not feel as soft anymore? Like, oh, it's the hair.
Legitimately, when my hair started growing back, and I have hair on my arm, but it's, I have a lot, but it's not thick. It's like really soft and kind of like lamb's wool.
Yeah.
But when it was gone, you're right. You're like, oh, my skin is so smooth. And when it started growing back, I was like putting on lotion. I was like, oh, that's my hair.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh
kind of disappointing. I could, to be honest, like, from the neck
seriously.
down, I didn't need it.
No, seriously.
I didn't need it back.
No, seriously. And then because I'm on tamoxifen, which is a hormone repressor, because the breast cancer I had was hormone positive. So now my voice is deeper than before, and I have, like, shaggy on my face.
Okay.
Like, I feel like a werewolf.
Oh man.
So I don't miss. I
Yeah.
kind of miss those days
Yeah.
where it was like baby smooth.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I miss those days.
But I
sometimes.
mean, you still have lovely skin though. I've
Oh my
like
gosh, thank
now
you.
that I've started back on hormones, I've noticed that I started getting blemishes again, which like
we're
I'm
teenagers again.
yeah, and I've like I mean I was I guess solidly sitting in menopause, you know,
Oh,
and
okay.
so I'm thinking that now that I'm starting to take the
The hormones and stuff.
hormones again, that's kind of like jump starting it,
Yeah.
which I really could have gone without that. I
Like,
just
not
like
the
I've
breakouts.
never had such beautiful skin except when I went through chemo.
Except when I went through chemo.
Like silver lining, please.
Right.
Like,
Oh my God. Now, don't get me wrong. There were a few silver linings, like
Yeah.
not having a cycle.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, I loved it.
Yeah.
I was like, oh no, I'm good. Thank you.
Yeah. Luckily, I already had an IUD, so
Oh, good.
I didn't
good,
have
good,
to
yeah.
deal with that anyway. But
Gosh. It was
yeah,
great.
and that was like another thing where I had seen a fertility specialist right before I started treatment, literally like the day of. And the specialist was feeling kind of frustrated, and same with my mother, was that if they had they had already suspected lymphoma the day that I was in the emergency room. If they had brought the specialist in at that time, we probably could have started with hormone shots right
Oh,
away.
yeah.
Pushed back the chemo day for like a couple days instead of a couple weeks, and harvested some eggs.
Yeah.
But when she saw me, it was the day I started, and that wasn't an option.
Got it.
And so then I went to see her, 6 months later, and we did a couple blood tests and stuff. And she was like, yeah, I think it's called AMH is the hormone that they measure. I think it's that. And she was like, yeah, we're hoping for like something in the 2 range, because that's like, at least then you can still harvest eggs. I was at a 0.012 or something like that. Like,
okay.
So there's nothing to take out to freeze. And
Yeah.
she's like, at this point, a donor egg would be a better option or something like that. So even though I personally hadn't even considered whether I really wanted to have kids, honestly, I'm still not sure. But like to have that option kind of like taken away, I don't know. I just felt really angry.
Yeah. No, and you have every right to.
Yeah.
Every right, because my story's kind of the same. I had my surgery, and then I met with fertility, all of that good stuff, doctor, what have you. But in the interim between me getting my surgery and starting chemo, they found out that my OncoDX test score was really high. And that's basically, for lack of a better phrase, giving you a percentage or a number of reoccurrence that, your cancer is either fast spreading or it's very aggressive. And on a scale, I think it goes like 0 to 100, I think. But either way it goes, like 31 is like the threshold. If you reach like 30, 31, like chemo for sure, but we need to do something now. Mine was a 41. Okay. So they were like, oh no, we're not going to wait. No, we need to do this right now. We can't wait for you to go through all of that stuff. And they were like, no, although we got the cancer out and we saw clear margins, no lymph nodes were involved, because your cancer was so aggressive, we do not want to wait. You know what I mean? We want to get in there, get it done. So kind of the same thing. Like, it was taken from me. Like, I didn't even have time to prepare to have a family. And anger, to be honest, is really not the word I would use. I'm beyond angry. Like, what is beyond anger? Because like you said, even if, and I'm older than you, but still, like, even if I wanted to, like, it's something else cancer has taken. Like,
and it's like I guess what, like, part of the reason why I feel this sort of like negative emotion about it, that's, I guess, stronger than anger.
I mean, that's just my words,
No, I mean, I agree, is just that, like, I can't forget that I had cancer.
Right.
It won't let go, because there are, like, consequences from it.
Long term,
even
forever.
Though, and even though I'm pretty young, and they were like, oh, you're young, you'll recover, like, really well from it, or whatever, and, like, yeah, I guess I have recovered to some extent, but like also I have to take the pill until I'm old enough to actually be in menopause without worrying about like getting heart issues and having bone density issues because I don't have any estrogen that I'm producing myself. Like,
Don't even start with the bone density.
and so it's just like there are things that won't let me forget, and I think that just makes me angry all over again when I have something like that like hits me in the face.
And how do you process it? How do you personally process it?
I don't know that I do very well. I think I've been kind of like pushing it a little bit to the side. I have seen a therapist, and I will.
Therapy. Please,
yeah,
go to a therapist if you need to. There's
mental
nothing
health
wrong
is
with
important.
it. It's so. I mean, I love my therapist. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like she's like one of my closest friends. I feel like.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I mean, it is important,
Yes.
and I am gonna look for somebody again.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess mental health has been like a focus in my family for ever. I guess my grandfather's a psychiatrist, my mother's a psychoanalyst. Like,
holy cow,
they're big
you
advocates.
couldn't do anything. Like
they're big
Alex
advocates for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, my mom didn't start training for that until we moved to the States. So
okay.
I was already, I was in middle school or high school when she started doing that. And I mean, of course, you never treat your family.
Of course.
But it makes you more aware of like, and I've seen it help like my mother and other people too. I know that it works, and it's worked for me too in high school and things like that. So like, it's just working past my own self to like actually find a therapist. And then like when you find a new therapist, it's always hard in the beginning because you are,
it's kind of awkward.
Yeah, it's awkward, and you're talking about some serious stuff,
right?
And you're, you don't know this person,
right.
And you're telling them your biggest,
you're unloading all of this stuff,
and so that's always a hard thing, and you just have to like overcome yourself to take that step, and so I'm working on that again.
Wonderful. And processing, I think one of the key things that you said that I can really, really agree with. Processing, because life goes on, we still have to work, we still have to maintain our lives, whether it be mental, emotional, physical, and it's always easier said than done to process your emotions or process everyday things that we can't change about what was taken, because life does go on. But like you said, I think it's crucial to reach inside yourself, you know what I mean, to process and say, okay, this is what I need for right now, kind of a form of self-care, like this is what I need, and I find it beneficial, and this is why I need it now, you know what I mean. Now, does that mean, and don't get me wrong, I'm not sitting over here, processing every little, nuance of this journey, but baby steps, you know what I mean, taking little things and processing this little piece today. Because it would be overwhelming, you know what I mean, if we took everything, like you said, walk in the door and just spew, to this new therapist. But little by little, I think, walking it out, talking it out, and then looking within yourself is really, really important, because, I mean, this is us for the rest of our lives. You know what I mean? We can't change it. We can't go back. But we can do the best we can with what we have. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it's it'll be a long process. I've always been a pretty introspective type of person, and like, I mean, even though I was never regular about it, I have journals from like age 10 on that I can like look through and see how I've changed or how I haven't changed. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's sort of, I still have this kind of like resentment that I'm going to have to keep looking over my shoulder when it comes to like feeling like anything is off or whatever. And also because this whole thing started with like a cough.
Oh, yeah.
I did get a cold like not too long after I finished chemo. And like immediately was very concerned, And so my PCP was like very kind about it and did actually order an x-ray for me just to like
to soothe your
calm me down, even though I'd had the PET CT to tell me I was in remission like probably 2 weeks before that. But you know, he was very accommodating for that. Yeah.
Well, that's good. We need very understanding doctors because our cases are just altogether different.
And also, can I just say, my PCP was absolutely amazing. Like, after I was essentially handed off to my oncologist, who's also great, he still would call me throughout my treatment and like check in on me.
That is amazing.
Yeah, he was so amazing. And like, if I had any questions, he was always there to help.
That's cool.
And things like that. So he was really amazing throughout the whole thing.
My
and
PCP didn't call me.
Yeah.
Dr. G, Dr. G, what you doing?
Yeah.
Thanks, Dr. G. Thank you. I won't call you out. I won't say your name.
Yeah, he was really great.
Cool.
And, so
that's
I was
good.
very lucky with that. And
that's good.
I also feel like, I mean, I've talked about like my dad and my brother, but my mom has been so supportive this whole time and has really let me sort of like vent or, you know, work through some of my emotions with her. And I would feel really bad because sometimes I would get so frustrated because I couldn't make myself heard or things like that. And sometimes I would take it out on her. Obviously I wasn't yelling, but like, you know, it was, you know, the sentiment behind it would be there. And I would always feel bad that she was the one who would get the brunt of it. But she was like, you know, I can take it. I'm strong enough, and I know that you need something, you know, you need this. And like, even though I know that she's strong enough to take it, that doesn't mean that she deserves that or anything like that. But I'm so grateful. Like, even now, still, she's such a source of strength for me.
Wonderful.
So,
that's beautiful. My mom, too.
Yeah.
Hi, Mom. I love you. But yeah, I can, like, my family was amazing. Like, was amazing. Because I'm not married. I don't have children.
Same.
So...
And I can't even imagine if I'd been in Vienna when I was
oh my gosh, that would have been
something.
crazy.
I mean, probably what I would have ended up doing is just like take a flight home and just dropped everything and flown home. But,
and to be with your family, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's crucial.
It's crazy. And like, I had been living in an apartment and my parents and my brother like moved all of my stuff out for me. Okay. And I moved back into like with my parents. And I'm still there because I'm starting grad school next year. Oh,
awesome. Well, that actually segues into my question for you. So what's going on now?
Yeah, so actually while I was in the hospital, I finished my application for Chatham University, and I'm starting an MBA.
Good school. Very good. My cousin got her MBA from there.
It's my mom's alma mater for undergrad and graduate school.
Shut up. Yep. Okay. So, I went to Carlo, so you know.
Okay.
A little rivalry. Awesome. And you're going for your MBA. When are you starting? In January?
January, yeah. Awesome. I'm starting part-time first, just to take it slow. I don't have a background in business at all. I studied linguistics. When I was an undergrad.
You studied what?
Linguistics.
Oh my gosh, she's just so smart. I just didn't realize how smart she was. Who studies linguistics?
I just kind of like fell into it.
Really?
Yeah, I was undeclared until junior year, and I was like, okay, what am I closest to completing?
What can I do?
yeah, and it was linguistics, so I went with that. But
that was so awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it really ended up being sort of like in my interests. I've always been interested by different cultures and different languages, and I could get really nerdy about it.
Yes.
But
I'm gonna have to pick your brain out some stuff. Oh my gosh. That is so cool.
Yeah.
So MBA in January, and how long do you think it's gonna be? It's what, 2-year program, right?
Yeah.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah.
That is so cool. So we're excited.
I think so. I'm like also a little apprehensive and like sort of mixed emotions about it. I mean, I think it's good because it's like a new step. Yeah. Hopefully in the right direction.
Absolutely.
So in that sense, like it's kind of exciting that I'm like actually moving forward because even before the cancer, I felt kind of stuck where I was. And so, Yeah. It was so weird at the beginning or at the end of last year. So 2016 going into, or no, 2017 going into 2018. I had such like a weirdly strong feeling that 2018 was going to be a different year for me. And it was, I mean, in my head, I think I was thinking like, oh, I'm starting grad school and it's going to make everything different and like things are going to change. Yeah, no, it was the cancer.
I mean, things did change. Yeah. But not on that
Not
spectrum.
how I
right.
thought, yeah.
No. Wow.
Yeah.
Your intuition told you.
Yeah.
I mean, something did happen.
Yeah, it was
but
weird.
it wasn't good.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. So grad
Yeah.
school and everything is good now, right? We're healthy. We're strong.
Yeah, I'm in remission since June 8th. So it was exactly 6 months, January 8th to June 8th.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. That's good. They knocked it out. They said, boom, boom, boom. Let's get it done.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay.
Yep.
So we're feeling good. Everything is good. We're working, all of that.
Yep, back to work since August.
This is, this is what I'm talking about. Like, first of all, you really can't put a face to young adult cancer. Although we're out there, most people don't think, like, there are people walking by every day. You just don't know what they've faced or have gone through. But, like, you just heard, this Amazon of a woman got diagnosed in January, finished in June, started back to work in August, and is already going to grad school in January. What? Like, badassery, as Matt would say. Like, that is amazing.
Thanks. It's so funny because, like, when I was applying, I initially applied to start in the fall of this year. And I was thinking, like, oh, I'll be done with chemo in May. 3 months, that's totally enough time. Like, and to, like, go back to work full time.
That was
like,
so optimistic of you.
Cute, yeah.
Yeah, that was real nice.
Yeah.
So now January.
Yeah. And then part-time.
Right, part-time. Like, no,
Yeah,
let's baby step this. Let's baby step this.
Yeah, and, like, one way that my PCP told me to kind of, like, conceptualize the recovery is to think about a week for every day that you spent in the hospital.
Oh, okay.
And so for me, that was, I think, over 45 days.
Okay.
So that's
that
like
makes sense.
Almost a year to feel normal again.
Right.
I put that in quotes because
yeah,
we'll see if I feel the same as I did before.
Right.
So.
Right. That'll be interesting. It's always interesting, the aftermath. So
yeah.
Awesome. Alex, this has been so fun.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me.
Your story is so, like, amazing.
Yeah,
like,
it's a little all over the place.
No, but I mean, listen, from January to June, though, like, what? It's amazing. Amazing. And here we are in grad school. Like, what?
Yeah.
Yo, see, this is my whole point. Like, to have people tell the story, but then also to see the after. You know what I mean? To see that I'm still living, I'm still thriving.
Yeah.
And just like you said, unfortunately, we know of people who haven't made it. You know what I mean? In our group alone.
Yeah.
Just this year alone. You know what I mean? We've had numerous people pass away, unfortunately. But life does keep moving. And not only does it keep moving, I have to be progressive and successful. You know what I mean? And that is what I want people to see. Like, yes, I went through this, but guess what? This is what else I'm doing. I'm pressing forward. I'm moving forward in my remission, and I'm gonna keep it moving.
Yep.
I love it. Oh my gosh.
Yep.
Thank you so much. So I just have one more question for you.
Sure.
I always end it off on a note. So if your post-cancer self could tell your pre-cancer self anything, what would you say?
I guess one is, like, you can survive cancer and chemo. Your spice tolerance is gonna go down. And
darn, shucks.
And turns out your bald head shape is pretty good and you look fine with short hair too, so that's cool.
Awesome. You had long hair before?
I've gone through different stages.
Okay.
I've had, like, elbow length hair right before I got cancer. I had short on the sides and long on top. It was almost chin length.
Yeah.
And we buzzed it all off.
Yes, I did
which
the same
was
thing.
fun. I have a video of it, and
really,
yeah, it was.
That's cool.
We made it an event.
That's good.
Yeah,
that's good because I mean, you have to own it. You know what I mean? You have to own it. Cool. Okay.
So, yeah, those are. I mean, I don't have anything profound. I don't have You know,
don't
I
have
know
anything
that
profound.
some people have found like meaning in
No, what you just
past
said
their
was meaning.
treatment,
Mhm.
but I, in most ways, I haven't changed. I think I
Yeah.
still have the same kind of outlook on life and things like that. I haven't had this like epiphany, but I mean, I'm still here. That's a big deal.
Absolutely. And that's what matters the most.
Yeah.
Hello. Awesome. All right, Alex, thank you so much for being
Thank
here.
you for hosting.
Absolutely, girl. Absolutely. So, if you are still here and listening, thank you so much for sticking around. Hopefully, something that we've discussed or something that has been said, you know, you were able to get some little nuggets of information and of wisdom. Because, like we were saying, this is a journey, of course, that no one really thinks they'll ever have to face. But once you're here, you might as well make the most of it. I hope you hear my quotes. And keep living, keep thriving, keep pushing. Because there is life after cancer. So again, this is your girl Yolanda Murphy with This Exceptional Journey podcast. Thank you so much for rocking with me, guys, and I will talk to you soon. Peace.